Hi everybody, Jorge here, and today I want to talk about being woke versus being awakening when it comes to social justice. So, first of all, let me clarify this specifically American meaning of the word woke, because I know that we have, this amazing international community on this page, and many people are watching from outside America, and as many of you know, I am myself outside America, and so in general English, woke is the past tense of the verb to wake up, meaning to come back from sleep to consciousness, and in American English, woke also has this additional informal metaphorical sense of an adjective, like being woke, a woke celebrity, a woke politician, so it is also used as an adjective. And being woke means being acutely aware of systemic injustice in society, like racism or classism or homophobia or sexism, all those things. So, in this metaphorical context, waking up means just going out of your privilege bubble and starting to see the reality of systemic injustice around you as it is. Especially the systemic injustice in the areas where you have unearned advantages, in the areas where you have personally benefited from injustice without even knowing it. Because to not be aware of systemic injustice in any area is the first function of holding privilege in that area. And let me tell you, I was guilty of that for the majority of my life. Growing up, I suffered significant discrimination in certain areas, but I failed to notice injustice. Even when I noticed it, I dismissed and trivialized injustice in the areas of life where I personally had unearned advantages, in the areas where I did not suffer oppression, in the areas where I had unearned privilege and therefore lived on the upside of systemic inequality. And now, after my spiritual awakening, which, as many of you know, was followed by 2 years of clinical depression, things deeply changed for me. The way that I see the world, the way that I see how society is built and how it works, the way I go about my own areas of unearned privilege and unearned disadvantage, the way that I think about and practice empathy, the way I think about trauma, the way I think about destiny, and most importantly, the way that I see my mission as an artist. All of that is strikingly different from how it was in my pre-awakening years. And today, doing this work around social justice that comprises a huge part of my artistic storytelling, I try to spread awareness about the things that I personally came to learn at a great, unnecessarily terrific cost. The things that we as society also pay a terrific cost for. The things that we should be taught at school, but we aren't. The things that are hugely important, that our culture nevertheless routinely ignores in favor of fun, fast, and easy. So those things are truths about social justice, about mental health, about relationship psychology, about creativity, all these topics that I regularly address in our conversations on this channel. And quite predictably, given my own interest and my lifelong commitment to social justice, I try to follow folks on social media who share this as a practiced value, who don't just talk about social justice in a rhetorical way, in order to be in the trend because social justice is a trending topic, in order to sort of be in the spotlight to attract publicity and then to make money from that publicity, but people who do some real work around it and who, when they talk about social justice, talk about it in a no BS way, in a vulnerable, honest, curious and brave way, in a way that contributes to a real, meaningful, and lasting change. And so such folks aren't many, but they exist, and they are out there on social media. And I try to follow them, and I try to see content from them. So a couple weeks ago, I received a piece of that content in my mailbox, because I received a newsletter from this channel, from this YouTube channel. and that was the episode of one of my favorite web television shows, hosted by Marie Forleo, an online entrepreneur, an amazing life coach, just a successful businesswoman, but at the same time, a great philanthropist. So she's one of those brave folks who do some real work around social justice. And, I mentioned Marie and all the inspiration and wisdom that I derived from her work over the years. I mentioned it many times on my channel. And in this particular episode, she was talking with Liz Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, this best-selling memoir that was made into a movie maybe a decade ago. You probably saw that movie or maybe just heard about it. And Liz Gilbert is another badass woman whose work has been a huge source of inspiration in my life and in my creative journey. And so I know that both of these women were involved in a lot of activism around social justice. They were involved in Together Rising, this nonprofit organization, along with their friends Glennon Doyle, Abby Wambach, Brene Brown, and all these really badass women were raising and also this organization were raising money for children in need, for women in need, for people in zones of military conflicts around the globe. So I really appreciate that. And on this particular episode, they were talking about Liz's new book, The City of Girls, which is a novel set in 1920s in the theatrical stage of New York. And it's a really exciting plot, very interesting to read. And at some point in their conversation, Marie said, Liz, when I was reading this book, I had this impression that you were saying, that the characters of that novel are not woke, but they are awakening, as all of us are. And so, Liz, this was so important. Thank you for saying this, because it gave me that space to dig into those questions around social justice, into those hard questions, without the burden of having to constantly evaluate what some words may mean in some people. And Liz was like, yeah, Marie, you're welcome. And then they went on to discuss the Me Too movement. And, this point in their conversation, it really caught my attention, this juxtaposition of awakening versus woke. To me it really sounded as if Marie said that it is okay to just be awakening, not to be woke. And Liz was like, yeah, it is. It's enough to be awakening. We don't really have to be woke. And I don't know if that is what they meant, or if this was the intended message, or I just misheard it, because, they just briefly touched upon it in the conversation and then moved on to another subject. But, it really caught my attention, because when I heard that piece of conversation, when I heard that argument, being verbalized in the conversation between two white upper middle class women sitting in a fancy studio in New York, none of them having come from privilege, but both of them having lots of privilege in their lives these days. It truly reminded me of a very common cultural pattern that is observable in people holding privilege, holding socioeconomic privilege. And I know this because I did 5 years, almost 5 years of networking now for a book dealing with intersectional social justice. And I did this kind of networking with American people working in the creative industry almost exclusively. And those people all held lots of socioeconomic privilege, which really created this contrast between me and them, and created a lot of things that are interesting to talk about, and that I talk about in my other videos on this channel. And so one very particular cultural pattern that I saw in these long experience of observations is that, I don't know, I'm not saying that this is specific to America, but maybe in the American culture it is especially visible, is that, people holding privilege, holding socioeconomic privilege, they avoid being woke, and they all are culturally licensed to avoid being woke, and instead opt for being awakening. Because awakening is this kind of moderate alternative to being woke, just to say, we're not here yet, we're just in the process. And so it's very common, when people just want to, no, we don't want to be woke, we don't want to hear the truth, we don't want to talk about truth, we don't want to see the evidence about injustice and systemic discrimination. We don't want to do that. We want just to be awakening. It's far more comfortable. And like, then again, I don't know if that is what Marie and Liz meant, but this is how it sounded to me. And since it is a very common cultural phenomenon that I saw lots of evidence from, because in the case between Liz and Marie, there was no evidence, I didn't have a chance to clarify this or to ask them this question. But in other people that I have personally interacted with over many years, I verified it very clearly, that these people are actually culturally licensed to avoid being woke, and they get away with avoiding being woke and instead choose an awakening, because avoiding being woke also sort of, frees them from some responsibilities. So, also this kind of juxtaposition between woke and awakening, it got me thinking about my own recent experience of waking up. And here I mean waking up literally, like waking up from sleep in the morning. And I want to tell you about this experience because, I think that this experience has a very important and profound lesson that can be rightfully applied to our spiritual awakening as well, and to our social awakening, to our awakening when it comes to social justice too. So here's the lesson, and here's a story that sort of provides a background for this lesson. In the recent months, as I started to work on the videos for this channel, I had to change my part-time employment schedule. So I had to move my working hours towards the end of the day in order to free up time in the mornings and in the afternoons for my creative process, for writing scripts, and most importantly for shooting videos. Because, in this shooting space where I am working right now, I'm very much dependent on natural lighting. So, I do have panoramic windows in front of me, and most of the light is coming from the outside. And the thing is that when the sun is, when there's no sun, like, in the evening and also by the night, when there's only artificial lighting, the picture turns out really crappy. So and the picture, it has to be nice when I'm shooting my YouTube videos, when anyone is shooting their YouTube videos for that matter. Those are, the conventions of the genre, if you will, on YouTube. So I'm very much dependent on natural lighting, so I'm very much dependent on the time of the day and on the weather in this work, just like a fisherman or a farmer. So these days I have to start working in the job that pays my bills at about 6 p.m. and I finish about midnight. And when the sun is out, I work with my creativity here, the love of my life, which at this point makes me no money at all. And the point when I'm telling you the story is that because of this schedule, I no longer have to wake up early and get up early in the morning. So unlike it was for the majority of my life, these days I don't have any external pressure to set up the alarm and get up at a certain hour. I can get up at any hour and I can come to this working cafeteria whenever I would like to, and start working on my content whenever I would like to. And of course, with this freedom comes a degree of responsibility, because the later I show up here, the less I can do. And at 5 p.m. I have to leave anyway for my bill-paying job. But the thing is that I still can afford to sleep longer and to get up later than I used to for the majority of my life. And here's one thing that I noticed about waking up, about my physical awakening these months, because I'm very sensitive to everything related to sleep. As a clinical depression survivor, I know, I came to know how deeply sleep can be disturbed when you're mentally ill. And so I know that those kind of sleep disturbances can be one of the first symptoms that predict the attack of clinical depression. So I pay close attention to how I sleep, to how I fall asleep, to the process of sleeping, to when I wake up, how many times do I wake up in the night, at which time I wake up in the morning, and all those things related to sleep. And so I noticed this one thing, that these days when I don't have to get up early, after I actually wake up, after I come back to consciousness from night sleep, which happens at about 8 a.m. every day, I still feel so lazy and so disempowered and so unmotivated that I want to stay in bed, probably for one more hour. Even if I feel that, even when I feel that I need to go to the bathroom, and even though I know that I won't fall asleep again, that I will just lose this 1 hour lying there in bed, doing nothing, making nothing, creating nothing, not thinking about anything useful, not solving any problems, not moving an inch closer to my goals in life. So I know this with my prefrontal cortex, this rational part of my brain, but still every fucking morning when I wake up like that, my reptilian brain, this, evolutionarily ancient part of my brain that is obsessed with comfort, it convinces me to stay in bed. And one way to look at it is that I have a flawed personality, that I'm lazy, and I'm just weak and lazy, and I don't have that kind of grit and perseverance and that focus on productivity that is necessary to become a successful person. This is one way to look at it. But I think a more accurate way to look at it is that my reptilian brain has this tight grip on my behavior when it comes to getting up, because what it is that I actually have to wake up to, what it is, my reality is full of trauma. So in large part, my reluctance to wake up and to get up is because my reality is full of trauma. Because what do I have to wake up to every morning? Every day I have to wake up to my own poverty that I cannot get out of in this country, no matter how hard I work, no matter how many jobs I work. It doesn't matter that I have a university degree. It doesn't matter that, I spent 11 years on my education. It doesn't matter. Because in this country, with the amount of economic opportunity that we have, especially in this industry, in my industry, in the healthcare industry, no matter how hard I work, no matter my qualifications, no matter my degrees, I can't get out of poverty. I can't ever, reach middle-class life with the amount of economic opportunity existing in this country. And so this is what I have to wake up to, and every day. And another thing here is my powerlessness, because this scarce amount of economic opportunity is created by some macroeconomic and macro-social factors here, and including the political system, the kind of political leadership that we have in this country. And I know that this scarce opportunity is related to corruption and embezzlement and all those things that I cannot change. I just cannot change it. And, my fellow Russians cannot change it either, because there's no popular power in this country. It's not a real democracy. It's not like the kind of democracy that you have in the West, where people have some real power, where they can go on a strike, on a protest, when they can actually influence how the state is being governed. Here it's democracy, quote unquote, in scare quotes. It's not a real democracy. Just like economically, it's not a real market economy here in this country. So I can't change it. I can't change the fact that no matter my IQ, no matter my university degree, I can't get out of poverty. And I know that sounds weird to you. I know that if you're watching me from America or, some other Western country, some part of the developed world, it really sounds weird and unbelievable to you that a doctor or anyone with a university education and a university degree, or specifically a doctor with 10 years of clinical experience cannot get out of poverty. It really sounds inconceivable to you, because in your country and in your world and in your culture, having a university education and working in an occupation like that is a surefire way out of poverty. But here it's not. It's not. And it doesn't matter how qualified you are, how intelligent you are, how diligent you are. It all doesn't matter. It's a system of corruption. Here you can, as a doctor, you can only get out of poverty and get sort of middle-class life if you are in the bribe-taking positions, if you're part of this ubiquitous system of corruption. And of course, you can get into those bribe-taking positions only through corrupt doors, through nepotism or favoritism or, paying bribes yourself. So, and if you work honestly and responsibly, you just cannot amount to anything but poverty. And I talk a lot about this in my other videos, so I just won't diverge into this topic anymore. So this is what I have to wake up to, my powerlessness to change that, my powerlessness to change my socioeconomic status, no matter my effort, no matter my talent, no matter my work. I have to wake up to my own chronic shoulder pain, which is, the kind of thing that I have from an injury. But I can't get any treatment for it in this country because of the level of healthcare available here. And I know this because I am myself a healthcare worker. And far more tragically, I have to wake up to the realization that I still have this skin tumor on my leg that is most probably malignant, that is most probably melanoma. And there's no way I can get an adequate treatment for it either here in Russia. Because, and since my networking efforts over the recent years, my networking efforts for the book, the only thing that can me get out of this country, since those efforts failed, I didn't get the opportunity to go to Europe and have my surgery over there as affordable, as available, and as curative as that would be. So I have to wake up to this realization too, every day. And I have to wake up to this worries about, wow, I have been diagnosed 1.5 years ago, maybe this melanoma has already become metastatic. This is the kind of thoughts that I wake up with every day. And I have also to wake up to the realization that today, almost 7 years after having found my true home and my place of belonging and my place of opportunity in Spain, and 6 years after having reunited with and starting to work full-time with my creativity, my real purpose, my genuine calling, and doing my creative work around globally relevant social issues, not just doing the creative work like, in fun, fast, and easy way, not becoming an entertainer, but becoming a truth teller, becoming a storyteller who addresses relevant social issues in his work, in his artistic work. And no matter how much value I bring to the table, with my work, I still stay here in Russia, in this fucked up country, where no matter my effort, no matter my talent, no matter my degrees, I am trapped amidst poverty and corruption and stagnation and depression. And most painfully, I have to wake up to the realization that almost no one in my life gives me empathy around all of that pain. There's a lot of sympathy, a lot of rationalization, but there is not nearly enough empathy. Maybe just one or two people. And, I also have to wake up to the realization that tens of those American people who could help me with my work over these 4 years, those people who portray themselves as empathy gurus and equality champions and social justice advocates, like who could be better candidates to talk to you about a book that addresses intersectional social justice, that addresses questions like homophobia, mental health stigma, corruption, immigration, classism, this work that intersectionally addresses those issues in an innovative, creative way that brings a lot of value to so many people struggling around the world. And those people that I reached out to because they portray themselves like that, those very people professing those very values in their books and on their podcasts just slammed doors in my face when I asked for their help with my work, because those values were not real. They were professed for publicity and for making money. So those people were full of bullshit, cowardice, greed, and hypocrisy, even though they successfully made money and publicity from eloquently professing the values that they never actually practiced. So these realizations and this reality are so traumatic that I don't want to wake up to them. Like even the prospect of meeting with and working with the love of my life, creativity, which is what I'm doing here in this co-working space and in my YouTube videos, even that is not big enough of an incentive to make me jump out of bed with a broad smile and say that I'm fine, and just go have some hummus for breakfast and then go pick up some coffee from Starbucks and then hop into my car and come to a fancy studio and start shooting my videos. Maybe it's because I know that there are no yummies in my fridge, or because I'm not sure that my car will start on any given day, or because I don't have access to a fancy studio and I have to shoot my videos here in a free co-working space where I don't have to pay a penny to anyone, or because, most of all, I'm not sure that my videos about social justice, empathy, mental health, creativity will get any attention, that they will cut through this clutter of fun, fast, and dizzy bullshit that dominates social media these days, and that privileged people are interested in. So, either way, I stay in bed for 1 more hour every morning and I try to reverse my awakening. Because the reality is painful, both physically because of this chronic shoulder pain, which is better when I'm lying in bed, and when I'm in upright position it gets especially acute, and it's also painful emotionally because of all this multi-sided trauma. And so every single morning after waking up like that, I stay in bed hoping that I will go back to sleep, or at least to some lucid dreaming, and that in that lucid dream, I will see Spain, my home country, and I will see normal life, the life that I could live, the life that I deserve to live, the life free from chronic pain, from poverty, from never-ending trauma and scarcity and depression and corruption, the life that we have space for joy and love and belonging and connection and creativity, all those most meaningful experiences that I have no access to, where I'm at right now, where I'm stuck for so many years because no amount of my effort and my talent can make up for my lack of privilege. And guess what? There hasn't been one day in these 3 months where this hope was not in vain. Like there hasn't been one day where staying in bed could actually bring about any positive outcome, any alleviation, any insight, any key to solving my problems. No. I just wasted my time, and eventually I anyway had to wake up and get up to my traumatic reality and to manage my ongoing trauma on a daily basis. So I tried desperately to not be woke, but to stay awakening, at least for some time, because woke was too painful. And the only result that I got is that I wasted my time, my most finite and unrenewable resource, the resource that could have been put into my creative work, in shooting these videos and writing scripts for these videos, that in my individual life, this work remains the only opportunity to get myself out of all this multilateral trauma. First of all, by getting me out of this country. So, here's the lesson. Woke may be too painful, but the truth is, it is necessary in order to start working. And awakening, as seductive as it seems, as promising to numb our pain as it may feel, in fact, it fails to numb our pain. And its comfort is illusory, and it leads us nowhere but towards wasting our time. And so when I take this lesson and I extrapolate it to the conversation that Maria and Liz were having about social justice, I see the exact same pattern. Whenever we have privilege in some area of life, and we all have it, we all have privilege in at least one area of life. So when we have that privilege, we don't want to be woke around that area, because being woke and acknowledging our unearned advantages and acknowledging the pain of people who don't have those advantages for no fault of their own, that is really, really painful. And sometimes it's utterly heartbreaking, So it's pretty much the same way. It's painful when now I'm recording this video and I'm feeling this acute pain in my left shoulder. Like I'm still feeling like there's a knife stabbed between my shoulder blade and my spine. So it's painful, but I'm doing this work despite the pain. So when it comes to social justice, it's the same thing. Instead of woke, awakening seems a lucrative alternative. It's like staying in this comfy bed where on one hand you realize that you're no longer asleep, but on the other hand, you still don't have to get up and face the uncomfortable reality. You can still stay in your comfort zone for some time, even though you know that that time is finite and it's not big, but you tend to take as much of it as you can. Because getting woke and getting up and getting to work is always uncomfortable. And sometimes it's acutely painful. You know, there's one thing I know for sure about truth. It's like the immutable law of truth, the mechanics of truth. And this is one of the things, of the few things that I know for certain in life. And that is it. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. It is a one-way journey, you know. As painful, as traumatic, as heartbreaking, as life-shattering as truth may be, once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it, no matter how hard you try. So in my spiritual awakening, just like over the recent years, just like my physical awakening over the recent months, I spent so much time and so much energy and so much hope trying to put myself back to sleep, back to this condition of unawareness and unconsciousness and emotional ignorance, back to the condition where my own pain could still be numbed, where my own story could still be denied, and where by consequence I could feel okay turning my back on the pain of people around me. So I tried to get myself back to this comfortable condition. And when that didn't work, I spent as much time trying to get myself at least halfway back, at least from woke to awakening, to the state in between, because woke felt unbearably painful. And that didn't work either. It was all lost time. And that time is the loss that, unlike my shoulder injury and my chronic shoulder pain, I will never, ever get to recover. No matter where I live, no matter how much money I have in my hands, no matter what kind of healthcare I have access to. So, the message that I wanted to share with y'all in this video is that when it comes to social justice, awakening is certainly better than ignorant. And it is still not enough. Woke is necessary. Woke is the only thing that works, no matter how painful it is. Woke is the only thing able to bring about real, lasting, and meaningful change. And woke doesn't mean that you get perfect at understanding social justice, that you get perfect with your language, that you will never say words that may offend somebody. It doesn't mean that you stop learning new things. It doesn't mean that you stop making errors. It doesn't mean that you stop stumbling and, falling flat on your face in these tough conversations. It doesn't mean that you stop being curious or that you stop listening and critically thinking and reconsidering and paying attention to new opinions and new perspectives and new theories and new stories. No. Woke means that you just make a point of paying attention to what's going on around you. That's it. Not only in big political contexts, but also in everyday life. You just pay attention to the interactions that you have with other people and to the interactions that other people have, with each other. As you walk through your daily life, that's what being woke means. Woke means that you prioritize courage over comfort, and that you choose truth over comfort. And so you say the truth about injustice when you come across it, no matter whether you have privilege or disadvantage in the area where this injustice is happening. And most of all, woke means that you get crystal clear on the values that you are actually willing to practice, not just profess. And then you actively seek to grow critical awareness about your unearned advantages, about the extent to which they inform your life experience, and about the way in which the absence of those advantages impacts the lives of your fellow human beings. And that's it. That's what being woke means. And that is inherently painful. And it is the more painful, the more empathetic and spiritual of a person you are. But however painful it is necessary. Because only when you are woke, fully woke, with your eyes wide open, not just awakening, it's only then that you can start doing the work that needs to be done around social justice in a real and meaningful way. Otherwise, you're just wasting your own and everybody else's time. hustling for comfort to no end at all. So I do hope you take this message constructively. Please, if you have a comment or a question, please do leave down below. I would love to have a conversation with y'all. And if you find this video insightful, inspiring, or helpful, please don't hesitate to share it with your friends. As always, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time on Hortior's YouTube channel. Be brave, keep telling the truth, show up, stay curious, and take care. Bye.